Creating Tomorrow's Forests is an innovative company that partners with businesses to meet their sustainability and net zero goals through planting forests. 2021 is a critical year for organisations to finalise net zero strategies in the run-up to COP26, and carbon offsetting is high on the sustainability agenda. Creating Tomorrow's Forest takes a more holistic approach to offsetting and specialises in forming partnerships to develop tailored nature-based solutions for wider sustainability goals. Their model provides a unique opportunity to offset carbon, increase biodiversity and invest in natural capital by planting thriving native woodlands. They're experts in forest and habit creation, having planted over 9 million trees in the UK and been involved in a multitude of habitat creation projects. All the tree planting and ongoing maintenance is carried out in-house, ensuring that their diverse forests provide ecosystem services for the long term. So there's a lot happening. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Elisabeth Boivin, who's the Managing Director, and also another Managing Director, Nicholas Hollingworth. It's great to see both of you. You are extraordinarily busy, but clearly you're thriving on it. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, very busy at the moment. Everyone's looking to plant trees, so it's a good time for us.
But what is so interesting is that it's a very simple idea, and I'd love to know how you came across it and how it's led to this company, Creating Tomorrow's Forest. What's the story?
Yeah, so I think originally we came here to the UK and we started a forestry company. So we were very much based in traditional forestry practices, building forests, management and everything that goes with the commercial forestry sector. Over the last few years, we started to kind of see the green revolution within business and them themselves trying to become more sustainable in their approach to the marketplace. At that time, most models they were using international companies to plant trees abroad in Indonesia, South America, and funding them. There was no real kind of initiative here in England for British businesses to create and plant trees here. So we saw that opportunity and we kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, first user advantage, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like Nick said, because a lot of those companies were away, there was no British habitats being created here. So we wanted to focus on giving that opportunity to people and businesses to kick back to nature. And with COVID striking as well, a lot of people realized that, you know, the natural world here in Britain was really important to them. It's good for mental and well-being, and yeah, forest bathing has been quite a popular thing to do for the British public. So yeah, it's kind of giving the opportunity to people to do this.
Yeah, did you find it surprising, though, that it's such an obvious thing? It was happening elsewhere in the world. You had commentators like me talking about it in the news, etc., but it wasn't actually happening here on our own doorstep. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't any options available for businesses to do it here. It's very easy to plant cheap trees abroad and get in a little bit of danger with that because the business can say, okay, I've planted 1,000 trees this month in Indonesia, and that is the end of the story. There is no oversight, there's no viewing of that. Whereas the way we're doing it, we're giving the businesses the opportunity to create habitats here in the UK, but then once we plant the trees, that is not the end of it. That's just the start of the journey, and it takes a lot of management and a lot of years to kind of follow that journey along, and we give businesses the opportunity to do it here, see the whole journey from start to finish.
Yeah, and it makes sense really because, as you said, you're planting the trees here, so the companies can actually see, look, you know, we planted so many trees, this is how they're progressing and this is what they're doing for the environment.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to give the opportunity to people to come to sites at some point if they wanted to, and come and see what they're actually doing and helping creating those forests and improving biodiversity here in the UK. So.
Yeah, but then I guess the question has to be, why should businesses be investing in natural capital and tree planting projects? And, you know, you can sell them the message, but how do you make sure that they're sincere in this, that they really understand it's not just greenwashing?
Well, I think greenwashing is an important word, and it's something that, you know, we need to address. I think it's driven by consumers now. Consumers want to see this change. So because it's driven by consumers who are demanding that the products that they are buying have a more better environmental outcome, then that is driving the businesses to change and adapt to that consumer want. I think once we're talking to the sustainability officers in the companies and the corporations, they have a lot of passion and drive to make this work at the moment, which is incredible to see. It's not mandated from governments right now, you know, there's no pressure there. I think it is consumer-based pressure going up to businesses and they're reacting to that and showing it.
And what fascinates me is how you work with the company. So let's have a hypothetical situation. Liz, you've approached me, we've been chatting, and it's like, okay, fine, I represent Juliet Foster Inc. So now that we're working together, what happens? How does this relationship evolve?
Well, we tailor our programs to suit the business's needs. So if you're selling a product, for example, and you're telling us, well, I would like to either carbon capture some of the emissions which are produced from that product, or then again, you would have then a report to give us. You'd know how much you're creating for that product, so then we could go on offsetting that. Or another option that people have been doing is they give us a percentage of their profit so that they don't it doesn't come out of their pocket pretty much. So that helps businesses get green without having to be off pocket. So this is...
Yeah, it's quite a simple solution for a designer handbag, which costs £200 to £300. We can do a carbon calculation on that handbag on what the environmental impact has been to create that handbag. And it's quite simple just to tack a tree or two tree or whatever that solution is onto it. And for businesses, that's a very simple solution. And for consumers, it's something that they can make a sustainable choice at the shop level. You know, they have handbag A or handbag B. Handbag B has created
Has planted a tree.
Has planted trees, created wildflower meadows, etc.
Right, so it doesn't really matter what the business is. It can be anything. I could be selling hot dogs, or I could be selling shoes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, there is that carbon offset.
Yeah. Even in low value items, lighters or pens, which, you know, it's very hard to tack on the value of a tree into a 20p item. But, you know, we have models available that tiny fractions of profit on those can be pooled up, and businesses can kind of collect that pool and quarterly, yearly take that pool and create habitats with it.
And it's tax efficient as well from the company's point of view.
Yes, I imagine that there is going to be some tax breaks in the future.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah. That's obviously something further on down the line. But I mean, even if you're I mean, hopefully you believe in the sincerity of the message. But certainly there's a good incentive further on down the line if you can actually get some kind of a tax break for being green, for doing your bit for the environment. But you know, this has come about, and this conversation at a really interesting time, because we're talking about reaching net zero targets, etc. But I guess that from your point of view, how is it that you can actually measure the success of what you're doing within that framework of the net zero emissions, and also, you know, mitigate the broader impact that a business is having on the natural world? So if they're having a negative impact, how can you blunt that so that it goes the other way? How can you help them?
Yeah, I mean, just creating the habitat that we are creating at the moment, it is the solution to that, I believe. Yeah,
there's no actual frameworks which have been drawn up just yet, but there are some which are being drawn up, so it will help guide people offset either their carbon emissions or...
The biodiversity matrix at the moment, it's in development, and that's done by DEFRA. Everything at the moment which is organised by a government is very simple. And it's not quite complex at the point. The way we're working it is, it's not just planting trees into a field and putting trees in every 2 meters and creating a monoculture plantation. You know, we've added in wildflower meadows around it, ponds, bird boxes, bat boxes.
So it's the full picture.
And really building a full ecosystem there. To measure that at the moment there's very simple biodiversity matrix tables to measure that, and there's nothing really set out to really get a concrete kind of numerical evidence of that. But the way we approach it is we take the customers and the businesses on that journey with us. So we'll show them the start of the site and we'll have a baseline. And then that baseline will be a very degraded field, and then we'll implement our procedure and watch that grow and show that data to the business.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you can refine the model as well as you go along, because clearly more businesses are coming on board.
Yeah, and well, I mean, we believe that tackling the biodiversity loss and climate change needs to be happening together. So in order to do this, the way that we model our sites is kind of creating the full-on habitat on a multi-level, and people can really kind of join that venture.
Is that a new approach as well?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the traditional ways which businesses have been offsetting carbon is just to put trees into plantations, you know, and this way we're tackling biodiversity and creating whole habitats, which is a completely different new spin on it, and a way that it should be done. If you talk to any reasonable person and you said, okay, we're gonna do a monocrop plantation over here, or we'll create a very varied, biodiverse stand over here. It's a simple answer. Everyone would go with that, but it just hasn't been done yet.
So in that sense, you are the trailblazers, really, aren't you, in this country in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah, which then runs us into the problems that there isn't enough metrics, there isn't enough data there, or systems set up to say, hey, we have this accreditation, or blah, blah, blah.
Well, the method that we have used for that first site is not accredited with the Woodland Carbon Code, which is one of the issues that we have been running into, but that is an accreditation which hopefully we're in talks to get approved, because it is a new way of planting habitats or creating that.
We're going
habitats.
over and above the standard schemes which are in place for that, and because of that, we don't slip into a model, because their model is very rigid and very kind of same along.
And you're taking it one stage further.
We're taking it, a lot stages first with the wildflower meadows and all the habitats around it. So because that falls so far out of the systems at the moment, we're trying to blaze our way. But we're in conversations with the WCC, Forestry Commission, and we're bringing everyone to the table to try and up the standards of these schemes.
So there's a lot happening. I mean, I use that word trailblazer. I mean, is that how you guys see yourself? Do you feel comfortable when people say, look, you are industry trailblazers here, or do you kind of shy away from it a bit?
I think we shy away a bit from it. I think, you know, there are other companies who are doing similar things to us, but not necessarily here. And yeah, I guess we are doing things a little bit differently in a sense.
Yeah, we're always looking to push the door and get that open and take the next steps, and I think that's important, to not be stuck in traditional models. Yeah. We've seen how traditional models have behaved from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, and we know that doesn't work, you know. So I think being young and a pretty energetic company, you know, we've seen the mistakes of the past, and we want to put that right in the future. You're
disruptors, basically. Environmental disruptors. Well, we use that term whenever we're talking about big tech. Let's bring it a bit closer to home to ecology. But I mean, I think what I find really fascinating about this conversation is the sense of change. Because once upon a time, if somebody told me that businesses would be actively involved in the environmental movement, it would have been inconceivable, because they seem so opposed. But given this, how do you think businesses can be critical in preserving and restoring the natural world? Because it just seemed inconceivable so many years ago, because they seemed so opposed.
They are the leaders of that change, because consumers want to be green, but they don't have a voice which is big enough to make those changes. I think the government will eventually follow suit if enough of those businesses make changes to be more sustainable and be green with their actions and their products and services. It will then kind of drive the rest of people to follow suit then.
It is an incredible change that we're witnessing at the moment. It's something that, you know, businesses should get more credit for at the present. Again, of course, it's consumer driven and profit driven, and they've identified that the consumer would like this. But the fact that they are stepping up to the plate and are not seeing short-term profits or, you know, or long-term gains, they are tackling the issue. And I think that's the only way we are going to tackle the major problems that we have in front of each other, because governments are slow. It's a big boat to turn, and everything needs to be debated, and they need to have meetings on meetings of how we do it. But business and private market, we can be reactive to problems, and we can jump right in, and I think that's what we're seeing, and that's only going to be a positive step for the world at the moment.
And when you look at sustainability, its role, how do you see that evolving within the business culture? Because they're getting involved now, and clearly they're enjoying it, but where does the journey take us?
I think hopefully it takes us to fully sustainable products, which it can be done. You know, that right now, the past, it hasn't been sustainable at all, and we're flipping that switch, and it's something that we have to go to. You know, there has been a line drawn in the sand, and we have to move that way, and businesses look like they are doing, and I think it's perfectly possible to offset, mitigate, you know, if we do have to do something damaging to the environment, there's plenty of scope to correct it. And
there is a lot of like all the renewables which are being created, like the renewable energy and everything, and I think the UK is doing really good on this, but the forest cover in Britain is sat at about 13%, so there is a lot of room for improvement on this.
It's almost like the Cinderella end of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So we can provide that, just that help for businesses to go into that option for them if they want to, as opposed to tackling other areas of the sustainability broad scheme.
I think if we look at UK planting rates since the 1980s, the UK woodland cover has actually been dropping. That's government mandated.
It's actually been dropping.
It's dropping, and that's been dropping year on year, and we're planting less and less and less and less trees in England. Now, they have always been government-run programs because businesses haven't been involved in it. Now, all of a sudden, we have the opportunity to get businesses involved with it, and they are very excited to be involved with it. That could drive those numbers back up to where it should be. And then that works within their sustainability models. It's a win-win all around.
Yeah. I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but it's interesting that, you know, you talked about how the tree planting has been falling off in this country. And there is that sort of battle, isn't there, between, on the one hand, planting the trees, but also conserving land so that you can build houses, etc.
Yes.
And how the hell do you resolve that?
It's finding the right piece of land, because obviously you cannot go and put trees everywhere, and you need to balance the right farming land to keep it farmland, and then choose those unsuitable or more degraded areas of land to go and put trees on to re-increase the biodiversity and the natural world which once was there. So yeah, it's just finding that right balance, and some areas of farmland, the farmers just they know they can't really do much with it other than low grade graze. So I think those are the areas which we need to target and go and rebuild forests on.
Yeah, even building housing. I mean, the housing issue, there's better ways forward, and we're seeing house builders addressing those at the moment, you know, so they're building houses with lots of trees on the streets. Street trees have been big news this year, and do we get rid of them, do we keep them? But we can build better, and then in those housing developments, they can have micro forests or miniature forests or parkland within it, but we need to get back to building right and developing right, and with a balance, everything's possible.
This has been a really, really interesting conversation. I'm not just saying this to flatter you, but certainly from my point of view, I've been learning so much as well. So given that, let's drag out the metaphorical crystal ball, clear away the smoke and gaze into the future. Now, if the three of us around this table or somebody else's table, and we're talking about the company, what sort of a company creating tomorrow's forests are we going to be discussing?
It's a difficult one. I mean, we're hoping that once we want to keep on doing what we're doing here, because we are a British-based business, but we are open to a scope to go global eventually, and go and make sure that we're creating natural habitats in other parts of the world, so that if businesses from abroad or people from abroad want to get involved with what we're doing, they can also be involved in something which is local to them, because it's about addressing the local communities and getting them involved into those projects, which makes people interested in nature. If you talk with those communities and bring them into a day-to-day kind of involvement, then they will want to change. It's when you see it on telly or when you read it on the internet, you just don't have that connection. So if you get people involved and connected with it, then they will want to improve in what they're doing. So I think hopefully this is going to be something we'll be doing.
Yeah, I mean, the businesses that are getting involved at the moment not only have a UK base, but they have global bases as well. We were talking about global corporations. So although in the UK we've seen a 50% loss in native biodiversity, and it is very important to focus and try and build that back over here, we also have corporations that have global footprints. So looking forward into the future, we would be looking at, developing those areas around the world.
So it sounds amazing, and hopefully we won't be talking about it in 5 years' time, but in less than that, 3 years' time, post COP26 and everything else that's been happening. But Elisabeth and Nicholas, thank you so much for being with us, and we wish you the very best of luck. It's a great project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.